Peter, people say, and I've known you for a few years now, so I can speak out of experience, but people say that your inspiration is off the charts. How do you do it? I mean, how do you keep motivated, get inspired through all the ups and downs of life, in life and in career? And how can we get some of it from you?
Well, there's a story. I learned this story, gosh, about 30, 40 years ago. Never forgot it. Man in an office building is looking over at the pier. He lives up right by the ocean, looking down at the pier. And he looked down and he watched a man would walk out in the pier and he'd stand there for hours looking out in the ocean. And next day, he looked out the window, looked out, there's a man, walks up, stares looking at the ocean. This goes on and on and on and on for years. Well, finally, the guy in the office building couldn't stand it anymore. And he raced up to the guy, he caught him going out to the ocean. And he said, "Tell me, sir," he said, "I've watched you for years. You walk out to the pier, you stand in the pier, you look at the ocean. What are you doing? Like, what do you do?" And the guy said, "Well, I'm waiting for my boat to come in." And the guy said, "Well, have you sent any out?" And I think that I take that piece of wisdom, and I thought that what a great story, because every day I got to send boats out. And if I send boats out every single day, it's astounding how it works, Mike. And I try and send 20 boats a day out. Now I only get 3 or 4, or 5 of them come in, but that's pretty good having 4 or 5 boatloads coming in.
Absolutely.
And so that inspires me because it works. It works, and that way I don't have to make a deal. I don't have to worry about something working because I know there's enough boats out there that they're going to come in. And how I stay inspired really is by communicating with the fantastic people I have in my life, and the new ones that I meet every day. Because people are unbelievable, and I get so inspired. And I'll just share another story, but this story affected my whole life. And when I was in the military, I spent 7 years in the Canadian Army. And when I was serving in the beginning, we had a real tough sergeant. His name was Sergeant Jack Vart. V-A-A-R-T, Sergeant Vart. And I mean, I still kind of stand to attention, when I think about Sergeant Vart. But Sergeant Vart was a tough old sergeant, as you could recognize in the Army. All that feeling of what a guy would be like that, because he had to manage a bunch of kids, and bring them in from raw recruits with long hair and baggy pants to military geniuses, you see. So anyway, I was going to buy a car, and I was like 16 years old, my first car. And so I go down Barrie, Ontario, and I go into the car dealership there, and I'm going in, and I said, I'd like to buy went to the lot, and I said, well, what can you get, for about $200 or $300? And the guy said, oh, we have the perfect car for you, I go out, there's a little called an Austin, very small, beautiful little car. I loved it. Oh, I thought, I've gone to heaven. This is the best thing in the world. So I go in there, and the guy said, well, this car is like $300. And I said, well, great, can I finance it? And he said, oh yeah, $50 down. I got my $50. So he makes up all the papers, he makes them up, and he said, where do you work? And I said, well, I'm in the Canadian Army. And he said, the Canadian Army? Well, why didn't you tell me you're in the Canadian Army? I can't finance you. And I said, well, why not? I have a steady job. Like, I'm signed up for like 7 years. It's only the second year. So, no, we don't finance soldiers. You're bad risk. We're out of here. And he ripped up the contract in front of me. Well, I was just like, crestfallen. And of course, I was ready for the big weekend and have fun. I go back to the camp. This is Saturday. I go back to the camp, and I'm about as despondent as you get, Mike. I sit on the bed, my bed. I'm sitting there like morose and sad, and Sergeant Jack Vart comes in. Hey, Thomas, what's the matter with you? And I go, Sergeant, stand up when I'm talking to you, get your heels together. So I stand up, get my heels together. Nothing, Sergeant. And he said, oh, what's wrong? And I said, well, Sergeant, I went into Barrie to buy a car, and blah, 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 but this is what happened. And he kind of takes note of it. And okay, he says, I'll be back in 15 minutes. Stay there. So I just sit in the bed, I'm in trouble. Whatever I've done, I don't know, but I'm in trouble. He comes back in 15 minutes, he said, I'm driving to Barrie. He said, come with me. So I follow him out, I get into his car. Well, I'd never been in the car with a sergeant before. I'm sitting like in the car like this, and we drive, it's about 20 miles. So we drive into Barrie, and I show him the car lot. He said, stay, and he said, stay in the car. So he stays in the car. I go into, I watch him go into the car dealership, and I see these 2 heads going, in the window, and they're like going at it. He comes walking out, and he says, okay, go in there. So I go see the guy. So I walk in and see the guy. Oh yes, he said, yes, it's all fixed up. You can have the car. Have you got your $50? Yeah, I got my $50. He said, well, yeah, good. Enjoy your car, Peter. Nice to be with you and all that. And I go and I can't believe it. I thought, boy, this guy, what a miracle worker, you know. So I go back to camp. I got my new car. I'm like, hell, I'm just like on top of the world. I go back and to make a little extra money, I was making $39 a month. So to make a little extra money, I used to press pants, shine buttons. I did all kinds of things to make money. Anyway, I saved enough money to pay the car off in about 10 months. So I go back to the car, back to the car lot, and I paid the money off, and it was done. About 2 weeks later, I get this envelope in the mail. And the envelope, I open it up, and it's the contract that I'd signed. I looked at the bottom of the contract, and I saw Sergeant Jack of Art's signature. And I read through, I understood, and then I realized what he'd done. He had actually guaranteed my signature. I didn't know that. And I still today, right now, I get goosebumps thinking about it, because I thought, here, he believed in me. Here's this guy, this sergeant. He had like all these people that he'd go year after year, he trained them, and he actually believed that Peter Thomas was good enough that he could sign his name for that money. And I've never forgotten it my whole life. And so I get inspired thinking about that story, about how he believed in me. And so that's something I believe you can pass on, the gratitude that I feel.